Okay, let's roll on out as we can go on now, and the rest of the people will come in. I mean, it's a nice conversation.
Go ahead.
Some of the chiefs here, um,
Actually,
Penny, Wali, 100%, brother, 100%, brother, 100%.
Okay, so just some housekeeping, please, while when you're not speaking, just to make sure you're on mute will be great.
Yeah, some people are installing Zoom for the first time as well. So,
Yeah, and then we will be recording. Robin has started recording the videos, so it will be available online if you want to share it or rewatch it at a later stage on all of our social media platforms.
yeah. And I'm already seeing, a good group of people before we even discussing that I personally know. Walid, Byron, all the friends that I have don't know. I mean, y'all grew up with me. Some of the people up in here is going to be people that we would like in our community. I mean, there's Simone, what she does with women, and Bianca, what she does with women. We don't have this in our communities, as well as this talk of food. Me and Brynmore has tried our best to introduce food properly, but it comes to who's our communication, who's in our circles. And this is one of those things that actually helps our circles also. It's not just IYX Africa, but I see us even as healers and naturopaths gaining out of things like this because we don't know each other. We hardly see, and that means a large part of my community don't know also who's who. If I don't know some of the names here, and some nice people in our community. I mean, like really, we do some very nice things. Just the names that's here on right now. This group of people is an organization already that could pull off something amazing, or individually. So also understand that the conference is not your basic rule of conference. It's about a directory for people to find out who we are, where we are, and how we can also be accessed, other than the topics of the day that will be spoken.
Yeah, so if everyone can just, while we doing the introduction, just in the chat, write your name, where you're from, maybe a little bit about you, so that as you're talking, if anyone wants to get hold of you or find out more about you, then we've got that on record. And we will be also sharing a form that everyone can fill, but Robin's going to speak more about this. So this conference is about coming together as community. We have, like you said, an amazing, diverse group of people already on the call, and we're coming together to talk about what's happening in our communities and sharing what solutions we have with each other. And we're going to have some guest speakers speaking on certain topics, and there's also going to be space for everyone to engage and to add your story, to add your voice, to share your solutions. So please do engage. Don't be afraid to speak up. We are all here because we want to be a part of creating the change that we want to see in our community. So thank you so much for coming. And Robin, we're going to hand it over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Bianca and Q. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robin Gora, and it's such a pleasure to welcome you to this significant gathering, IYX Africa's Conference for Community Solutions. The aim of today's conference is to gather our energies, our ideas, and our voices to address some of the most pressing issues facing our communities today. And in this conference, you will be hearing from our hosts, Craig Q7 Beckett, Bianca Burns, Sherry Connell, and myself, Robin Gora. We're here to explore solutions and strategies with our panel of guest speakers. And we hope that these strategies can strengthen community building, empower indigenous voices, ensure food sovereignty, create green safe zones, and foster youth development. This conference is a call to action, a space for collaboration, and an opportunity to envision a better future together. We will be recording this conference, like Bianca said, and we will post it on our YouTube, IYX Radio, in case you want to come back for any information or share with anyone you know who maybe couldn't be here with us today. So let me begin by sharing more about IYX Africa's IYX Solutions campaign, which has been instrumental in laying the groundwork for today's discussions. We've done a lot of research with the IYX Solutions campaign and effectively raised awareness for IYX Africa's letter to Minister Gayton McKenzie of the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture regarding urgent support needed for indigenous youth development. And we are thrilled to report that the campaign has been such a success. We've received inspiring feedback from communities across the country. And through social media polls and engagement, the feedback revealed the need for enhanced cultural education, better media representation, and the need for community solutions. And as we move forward, I encourage all of you to stay connected with us through our social media platforms and look out for upcoming events and initiatives. So stay connected to our website and our social media platforms. So in today's program, you will hear from a diverse group of panelists, each bringing unique insights and expertise. And the topics we will uncover include community and youth development, sustainability, and indigenous empowerment. And our distinguished panelists who will be leading these discussions include Pooja Sethi, who will delve into modalities in medicine and share her personal journey. Vanessa Black, focusing on community youth development. Cyril and agroecology, among other topics, and Cyril Yankees focusing on community youth development, Roland Fielding offering perspectives on community sustainability, Dirk Kuzachike sharing insights on the Sun Cultural Festivals and community solutions in Namibia, and Leader Bergwater addressing Indigenous law and affairs, as well as Farid and Eugene, both dedicated community activists. They will share their insights on Indigenous development, community development, and yes, we're so excited. Thank you for joining us today, and I'm looking forward to making the most of this opportunity and creating a lasting change for our communities. And yeah, so Q, we are interested to know your take on Indigenous community and youth development.
Yeah, yeah. Firstly, there's somebody special in this group, a very good friend of mine, Ronald Trout. Ronald Trout, where are you? Yeah, could you take your microphone off?
Is it on now?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the guys in the Western Cape that really inspired me a lot in life. He's finally got himself a farm, and what he's did, I think, as the brown community, our brown community should really look up to him. He doesn't just have a farm; he trades internationally, and this is from grassroots level. He sells plants overseas. And that I think is a great thing. You know, he's one of the people you could never imagine would have breached into an international market from the dirt in the backyard. And he owns a farm today. So thank you for being here, Ronald. And I really appreciate you taking time away from farm work today. Yeah.
Well done, Ronald.
Yeah. So it's an achievement in our community, a big achievement. We still have to wait and see that. Okay, people, Indigenous youth development is not what people think it is. Indigenous youth development is how do you come into my life? And every other youth development is that. It's about how does your life enter my life. Your life is entering with everything that is you, that made you up to be you, your education, your knowledge, your hardships. That in front of a young man or a young woman is the wealth that actually is youth development. In this, we're going to be talking to some of the chiefs who is trying their best to get on. These old men, they know WhatsApp mostly. So a lot of them are trying to install Zoom for the first time. But if they do pitch up, thank you for them pitching up. They're trying to be here as well as our military veterans that nobody knows. And they're also going to try their best. They're very old men these days. So these are WhatsApp cowboys. And yeah, they have to download Zoom for the first time, but we're getting there. In indigenous youth development and any other youth development, some of y'all are into wellness, it falls into youth development. Some of y'all are into agroecology, it falls into youth development. There's nothing we can say that we do that doesn't fall into youth development, but it's how we place it on the table and how we communicate it and articulate its needs. For example, I come from a Bushman community, and a lot of people saw me growing up in Durban, but they think I'm from Durban. I'm not. I'm from Riverlea, Johannesburg, and majority of my family is either in the Northern Cape, Namibia, or a place where it's semi-arid. Growing food there needs special care. We have helped people like my brother Cyril in obtaining knowledge on how to grow in a semi-arid. This comes from exchanging hands and exchanging knowledge. So here we're looking at community development and where we lack as an indigenous people. You might think we lack in the respect and the identity. No, that's not where we lack. Where we lack is how we connect to nature and to well-being and to the rest of everybody else. That will make development feasible. You can't develop something that's stressed out. That is rule number one. You need to calm that thing down and develop it. Some of the people in this room here right now that we are talking in is being developed psychologically by just knowing they can be part of something like this. So let's look at this community development, not just something that is looked at as something physical, but we can exchange. This technology makes it available. While I'm online with you on the conference, I'm busy chatting with somebody right now in the jungle and trying to explain what we are doing right now. And that's in South America. We are doing development work as well. So let's continue and move on.
You're just getting us charger. But on the talking about community development here in Southern Africa, obviously we have a diverse group of peoples here living in this country and in Southern Africa as a whole. And why we as an organization focus on Southern Africa is because the indigenous First Nations of this land, they moved nomadically across Southern Africa. And it was only when the European colonialists came in that we then started drawing up all these lines on this land. So that's why we work within Southern Africa as an organization, so that we can work with all the clans. And in terms of community development, it starts with us getting to know each other. It starts with us getting to know who are the different tribes, clans that were here first before all of us arrived. What is their culture? What is their language? What is their story? And who arrived here? And how did we meet? How did our ancestors meet? What is the story that took place that we're now living out the consequence of that story in our lives? And from that place of really connecting as community, then we can start sharing our knowledge, our skills, our resources with each other. So IYX aims to be a platform to bring together the community, indigenous and non-indigenous youth and leaders, so that we can start being the change makers that we are born to be. And many of us that are leading the way can start sharing and helping to activate this movement in our communities. So, coming from a non-indigenous perspective, I feel it's really important that we make more of an effort in our country to connect with, to learn from, to support the indigenous people of this land, because I don't really see that happening. There's actually a majority of people that I speak to, even people that are of indigenous descent, don't know much about who they really are. And that's why we have placed Indigenous empowerment at the forefront of what we do. But obviously, no one group can be empowered without all of us working together. And that's why we are working and inviting all of you as diverse peoples to come together and be a part of these solutions, and tell us how we can be a part of the solutions you're creating in your community as well.
That's it.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to share, if anyone's doing anything amazing in their communities or has anything important that they feel, they want to share about community development, what do you see we need to do in 2025 as a community here in South Africa? This is your moment. So you can just speak,
Sorry,
yeah?
guys. I am a bit nervous, I'm going to be honest. First time in a meeting, first time using Zoom. But I'll try my utmost best. My name is Walid. I'm born in Yalraro Park. I'm at the age of 32. So I have a past history myself of, the tough upbringing in our communities. And I am actually driven to youth development since about 2012, I think. I've started. It was more political then, but it never worked. So I am still focused on it, and I am pushing by all means. We face a lot of challenges in our communities. From my point of view, there's very little jobs for people. The struggle is real. A lot of crime gets committed in the areas. And I think it's about time we need to come together. That's why I joined the meeting today. I got information about Mr. Craig Beckett, and that's why I joined this meeting. I want to be part of this movement. I am part of a youth development agency called Batupele in Middelburg, but I'm from Eldorado Park originally, and I live in Centurion. I'm currently a barber. So yeah, that's more about me. There's tough things we see in our communities, with gang violence, and there's a lot to mention. There's a lot to mention. But from my side, what I would like us as a community to do is just come together, because we can only make it work once we come together with one another, and then we can make it work. So from my side, that's what I have to say.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I mean, you're talking about home. That's home to me, It's Aldo's Riverly. It's one thing. It's the same thing. It's the same problem. And over the years, me growing up there, I had the same problems you growing up in. And it came down to who was around me and what information was around me. And it's time we fix that part, because that is the big problem. We end up living like no one cares. And we believe that. And the truth of it is, people actually does care. They just want to see our own first stand up for themselves, like you are right now.
Hi, Q. Q, can I speak?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Roland Trout. I'm originally from a small town just outside Cape Town called Marmarie. It was one of the first towns that was in South Africa long before the Europeans came to South Africa. Our town were there. And our town were a beacon of hope for food that was produced in our town all the years, from my ancestors producing food for the SIPs. In the road leading to Cape Town, the old Boomerpad, some of my ancestors were part of the people that built that road with all the trees, and it's been standing there for a long time. And I grew up in gangsterism, all that stuff. I also grew up in. My father and my uncles taught me about the veld. Like, we were camping in the veld, we were hunting in the veld. They taught us about the teas that we can drink, the buchus that we can drink, the herbs that grows naturally in the veld. And today I'm doing my own thing, moved away from that kind of life. miss the music playing when I was still playing clubs. That's also part of my culture in Cape Town. Miss the music playing, but I'm in a better place now, free on my own land. Have all the plants that is indigenous to South Africa growing on my land. I even have the sugar bush that the Bushmen used for sugar in the old time. And I also have a lot of natural herbs growing here in the field. And I'm exporting indigenous flowers, cultivating them. And in the youth development here in my town, I'm doing not youth development, I'm doing development in food security. Like me and my wife, we're sponsoring for food for the soup kitchen. We're sponsoring food for the love angels for children that don't have gimbies and that stuff. We help there also. So that's what I do here. But I have been all my life in youth development. I work with the disabled people because I'm also disabled, declared by government because of my eyes. But I have defined everything. I drive my own car without license. I don't tell the cops, no. But I'm doing my thing and I'm loving it. And my son is also part of this thing. He doesn't want to farm one day, but he knows a lot of things like that I have taught him here when he comes to visit me. And so, like my father taught me the things, planting fruit, vegetables, that thing. That's a teaching that I want to do. And I want to develop our youth to be sustainable, to live from the land because it's our land. Why can't we live from it?
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much. No, it's the truth. Some of our communities are like that. I mean, who would say that I come from a product of Johannesburg's most largest gang community, and I come from there, and there's many like us trapped there that can't come out in that trauma. And people like Roland is the reason why I got out. I had to look at somebody's life to get out of that situation. And being in food security and the community help people's in, that is actually freedom, not the other things you wish to be free in. You only find freedom when somebody shows you kindness. And Roland does a lot of that as IYX Africa works. Shiam, can we hear you, please? You can unmute yourself.
And then Penny will be
And
next.
then Penny will be next. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for letting me speak and for the work that you do. I'll be honest with you. I was recommended this call from somebody in India who came across your work, and he also is involved with working with indigenous communities there. And his name's Janan. And I happen to be in Tanzania. I didn't know the details of this conference. So realizing that what you do involves South Africa and I'm in East Africa, would it still be all right to ask a question based on my experience with working with indigenous people?
Yes, my brother. I mean, you are sitting right there where the Hadzabe is right now, isn't it? I mean, this is Tanzania.
I was with the Maasai last week.
Yeah, the Maasai and the Hadzabe is who I also try and do a lot of work for, promoting their struggles, their land fights. The Hadzabe is hunting rights that's being violated. The Maasai being pushed off from their land as we speak. These are things that this type of grouping you are part of is part of. And the food security that I practice partially belongs to the East of Africa. So there's a lot of East African information. You have Vanessa Black is here that's also worked with people along Kenya, Tanzania, right down to Mozambique. And the Tanzanian problem and Southern African indigenous problem is not far much away from each other. They're the same thing.
Yeah. So what question did you have, Shiam?
Well, that's good to know. Thank you. I came away from my time working with this community with a sense of futility. On my way back, when I came back from this community center that was built for the women of the Maasai, their culture is traditionally patriarchal. But I don't say that in a bad way. I just mean circumstantially, the Maasai men were herding their cattle as pastoralists. And now that the cities are expanding, they've basically lost their identity. They don't know who they are. Now, a lot of them come to the cities to work as security guards. But for the most part, when we were there at the center, you could consider from an outside perspective that the men are very lazy. But they're not lazy. It's just this is not their identity to do work like this at the home. So I had to really get into arguments with them, unfortunately. But we found common ground eventually. Now, my task was to create a curriculum for their schools, for their kids. I've been a teacher for a while, and the only way I could see indigenous knowledge being preserved, unfortunately, involved destroying their culture while I was doing it, which was the aspect of teaching. The only way I could see this being done is teaching them religiously. This is you as a Maasai, your holy land is here, this is your mountain, this is your language, the same way that any of us, I would imagine, I don't mean to assume, grew up in a post-colonial education system. And then you then ex post backtrack those realizations. And the sense of futility came because this is what it is. This is the paradigm that we live in. I'm really happy to be wrong here. But it would be wrong of me to not teach the Maasai children certain things because what they find themselves in is an urban environment, at least more so than their parents, and certainly more than their grandparents. So my question to this people over here is that I don't know how to escape the feeling, but also it seems to me the best way forward is to do the least harm. And I can't get my way around that. I'm not so much of a revolutionary anymore when I first got excited by this idea. It's like small changes is where I'm at. And I'm wondering if this sparks any thoughts in anybody here from that. And if it doesn't make sense, I'm happy to clarify. And thanks for your
It
time.
makes a lot of sense, my brother. We share the same type of, how can I say, conflict out there. I work with Bushman clans, for example. For me to go into the Bushman clan, the first thing I look after is their psychology and the makeup of the culture. I wouldn't want to dismantle that, but at the same time, they're suffering. They don't have no water. They have no food. This is a foraging community. They don't eat onions and potatoes like we do. They have to go forage for berries. So in that, I show them the value of their cultural value. And in the cultural value, I show them what they can do with what they earn from that. That keeps the man's culture safe, his belief system safe, and it makes him believe that his system gave him that. External factor did not, because he had to earn from his culture. He had to earn from his spirituality. And in this, I found that they become more in their own network, their own business, their own, how can I say, network of earning. It becomes them, like we are. The only reason why me and you can articulate this is because we have running water out of a tap. That little thing changes a lot psychologically. These people still don't have a running water with a tap in 2025. Psychologically, they are far behind. So by us entering, making sure that they know they can earn via their culture, earn via, and not only earn money, but respect. That is the main thing. And when I walk away there, I do come back 3 months, 6 months later to see my damage. I have to audit my damage. And what do I look for? I look for telltale signs of my urban bushman life in their native rural bushman life and try and explain it, not minimize it, because it's gonna come. I'm dealing with shock and trauma. So as a person who understands shock and trauma, I'm bringing small parts of the shock into the village slowly, so that they don't be shocked out of their culture and be like us that gets culture shock when we enter a position where a person gives you, like the Hadzabe or the Maasai gives you the heart of an animal to eat bloody. Then you want to faint. No, it's culturally inappropriate to faint. So to get even me, the visitor, ready to go there, that's what you're doing. Look at your important part you're playing. You're now giving me the insights of East Africa I haven't heard for a while, which means the problem is still persisting. We haven't done work yet. If you are still in East Africa talking like this, we didn't help. So this is that boardroom where we come back with your information and your input and say, okay, right, how do we create a green safe zone out of the information and the data we've been digested over the 5 years? Because we're not seeing change. There's still a loop in communication. There's still things in our way that should not be there, because we're afraid of entering somebody's life and destroying their culture. I can honestly say, as a Naro person, if you're gonna pity me and stand aside because you don't want to enter my community and harm it, you're doing more harm.
Mm.
You are doing more harm. I'm gonna die without the world knowing who I am.
Yeah, so
You can I say
Xiang,
something?
yeah,
You can
just wait. Yeah.
Saim, welcome to the chat. I'm glad you're here and I'm glad you're working in the whole of Africa. But can I tell you now, to destroy their culture now and to change them to being more recognizable, and like you is saying about incorporating businesses, becoming cooperatives, working together to get to the common goal is a good thing. You must change must happen so that new things can sprout from them. So you on the right track, brother. Do your work.
Yes. Exactly. And please do share with us your details, Shyam. We're part of a few amazing networks around education. And we also have an amazing project, Native Child of the World, that wants to connect youth across the world. So please share your details with our team.
As well as I have lawyers in Tanzania that you can contact as well. A brother of mine just graduated in Arizona studying indigenous law. He's sitting in Tanzania, so I can also link you up with one of my brothers there. Shari, could you please link the brother up with our law team in Tanzania? And they also run a school, brother. So he's talking about putting things in curriculum, understanding the way you are as well. So please, Shari, please could you forward the brother our contact in Tanzania as well.
Okay, Penny, we're gonna head on to you, and then after that, Pooja.
Hello,
Yeah, you can
Penny.
go. Okay, we can't hear you. Okay, we can't hear you, Penny. Maybe your microphone is not working.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear
That's it.
you now.
Ah, fabulous, fabulous. Okay, so yes, hello, I'm Penny. Having a bit of stage fright, but yes, I'm recovering. Yes, just saying hi and also letting you know that I am part of a business named or called rather, We Are Song, and we specialize in like offering sessions in mental well-being, and making use of music in order to do that, because music is something that connects many communities and peoples across the world. And um, something that we have like picked up through our research and such for a while is that mental health plays like an extremely important part of like many human lives, and like it's a issue that isn't really being like addressed as well as it can be, especially within the school system of South Africa itself. So what we aim to do as an organization is bring um, healing a bit closer to people, um, but also take not healing rather, but mental wellness, and removing the stigma of it through something that's more accessible and like approachable, like music itself. Um, yeah, I just wanted to share that, like just to say hi and yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Penny. And you've shared your links on the chat, so if anyone wants to reach out to you, that they can.
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah.
I still
Another
need to
thing,
add the
Penny,
links. Yes, dear.
please send also all the details of how and what kind of person in the mental situation you're calling at, because I mean I'm a healer. I can tell you the call from the brown community comes in a lot, and it
Mm.
comes in at such an alarming rate that a person at me that works both plant and energy, soil and space, and you
Yes.
find that we're coming now to a point where we need to create networks to filter work. And I can
Mm-hmm.
honestly tell you that few minutes on a phone or on a chat for the young people I'm treating right now is needed.
Yeah. Thank you.
Um, they really need to know how to be called, who is this person, and what kind of person is needing that help.
Mm.
So please
Yes.
drop your message, but also get my number on the side because there
Mm-hmm.
is few cases that I'd like somebody to be there present with me with virtually or in person dealing with certain people, and I could call in a consultant at that time. Thank you very much.
That would be
We
absolutely
are going to
lovely.
continue with these community discussions as well
Mm-hmm.
after we finish with our panelists. So we're going to just do Puja now and then Simone, and then we're going to move on to our
Yeah,
next segment. So do you want to
we
introduce
could do.
Puja?
Uh, Pooja is going to do a broad talk. And Simone, I'd like you to talk after Pooja because I'd like you to meet Pooja. And I feel that it's one of the people I'd like to see in the causes coming up as well if you are doing. So after Pooja, please, Simone after that.
Okay.
Pooja, are you here, my dear?
Yes,
Namaste.
I am. Namaste, namaste. Hello, everyone. Very warm and loving namaste to all of you from India. I'm Pooja, and it has been lovely to be connected with you. And it's been lovely to hear all of you beautiful people talk about your indigenous healing practices. It reminds me of how connected we are to our ancestral practices. I am an Ayurveda practitioner, and we Ayurveda is a beautiful healing modality which is like 5,000 years old. So it is extremely ancient, and just like how some of the indigenous South Africa practices, Ayurveda is all about healing through nature. So whether it is healing through some herbs, some spices, basically in Ayurveda we talk about the five elements of nature, which is earth element, fire element, space element, the air element. So everything that we are is nothing else but these elements. So we know that our human body is 70% water, right? So imagine if we can heal the water element in our body, automatically 70% of our health is revived, right? So it is all about using, and health should be, uh, our our right. Like, we are all born to, we are all worthy to have a happy life, happy and healthy life. So that is what my mission is, to like spread happiness and health with these ancient secrets of Ayurveda, where you can cure inflammation with just a powder like turmeric. You can cure your insomnia, your sleeplessness, your breath work. So Ayurveda is all about these things, which are very, very natural, which are connected with nature. And we also talk a lot about our soul. I'm so glad that Penny mentioned so much about mental health. So it is all connected. The minute our mind and body can be in one place together, powerful healing can happen. So I conduct these courses, and Q has been a part of many. And I'm so glad that I've been able to reach out to my brothers and sisters in South Africa. And yeah, just looking forward to help you all more and more, collaborate with you all more and more. Q, if you want, we can drop in the link in the chat box, which you have created of the group of members in South Africa. So whoever
Yes,
wants to learn about Ayurveda, know in details, uh, can
yes.
benefit through that.
We have a Ayurveda group opening in South Africa. This group is very special. It's just not a chat group, by the way. This group is going to be created for a year-long study in Ayurveda. The courses has to be paid for, but inside the group you're going to find remarkable information already for free there. I don't think you spend more than like 600 rand for a course. It can never be that expensive. Puja is really reasonable with her time. I'm very, 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 very honored to have a puja in my life. If you understand just the name of puja, what is a puja? And she's made her causes that cheap for us. And I've been promoting it for a few years now, and this has now come to the point where I can say we want to create a group for a year-long study in balancing yourself. And whether you do the or not, in the group is where you're going to learn not just the basic understanding of Ayurveda, but understanding where to plug it into your urban life. Because you can learn the thing and then have an understanding that you know certain words and certain things, but where do you place it? How do you work out a formulary of your life, not a formulary of just the plant? Ayurveda is about that. It's about everything natural and living. So this group will be created, and Puja will visit once a year. And in this once a year she visits, we're thinking of creating retreats. And these retreats will move between Johannesburg, Durban, and the Garden Route. And it will be more giving people the opportunity to be your own shaman, to be your own healer, to be your
Yes.
own person driving you. That is what we study. A lot of people ask me, what do I study? I study balance. Whether it is community development, no, I study Ayurveda in community development. That is balance. I study Ayurveda in our clans. I'm a Bushman clan person, but I use Ayurveda to communicate and balance my trauma of the soil. That's how important Ayurveda can become. So it helps me translate a lot that as an indigenous person that I can't translate. Because if I have to tell you indigenous medicine, how I fix a human being, you would not let me touch you. But in Ayurveda, it gives me a way to explain this. Because if I tell you your fire is off in the Bushman way, you're not gonna understand that your fire is off, or you have too much water in your feet when you walk. You would not understand me. But Ayurveda gives me that. So the Ayurvedic courses are very, very amazing. It's gonna come out. We will share the group. Yeah, the group link is there. The group link is shared. And there's also talks we do it in this group. Talks to better understanding of a lot of things. If you look at Puja, for example, people, she covers not just Ayurveda. Within Ayurveda, there's many other ranges
Yeah.
and other levels. She does from yoga right through. So for a person like Simone to spend a 30-minute conversation in Simone's world, where she's in depth of what she wants to become as herself, Puja is that person, my dear. So thank you, Puja, and thank you everybody else. But all the other information is around, and yeah, this thing is going to be also uploaded online for more information. But most of the people in this group is not strangers. They people linked directly to IYX Africa or to me. So any information about these people can be asked at any time if you lose their context or any information in the chat.
Okay, thank you. And Simone, do you want to speak quickly, and then we're going to move on to our next panel?
Okay, Simone.
I'll just have a quick intro of myself. I'm from Durban, and I just 3 years ago moved to the Garden Route. I'm now one of the only people of color teaching at the Space Between, and I'm a regular yoga teacher there, which I'm very grateful for that opportunity. But I'm also like, I wish there were more people of color like teaching and representing and things like that, especially in the Garden Routes. So that's kind of my mission now, is just to establish myself as a facilitator and teacher here, and then find my other people that I can connect with, and we can find ways to represent here. And then I'd also like to say that, touch on what the conversation has been around self-worth and on how we earn through our own culture, because I think that a lot of us have issues of self-worth because we've had to change aspects of who we are to try and fit into this world. And what you said, Q7, was earn through your own culture. And for me, that means self-worth. It means shamelessness. It means empowerment. And yeah, that's the only way I see it going forward. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, thank you for talking the truth, my sister, because a lot of our sisters, they don't know how to digest that shame. It is not their problem that they're in that glorious position or that nice position or that poor position. The minute they step out and understand the world of who they are, they become free. I mean, me and you both went into the Garden Route as strangers. Look at the Garden Route now. We are part of that community. It's medicine. It's we do lack more people of color, and out of the shame, not with the shame. We want you out of the shame in there to be free and accept. I'm planning to bring you down some Bushman sisters. They come from the desert. They know nothing about that life there, but I know you are there. I know you are there. That means they got a connection, a link in there to safely welcome them in, safely show them that world, and safely let them exit that world. That is important. And if you didn't do that, you'd be stuck in Durban. I'd be stuck in Durban doing hip hop. You would be running around doing your thing, yeah, and we would have never lived this remarkable life. And it's about that. Some people are scared of travel. And my people, that needs to change. You're only going to know who you are and what you are if you put yourself in situations that make you feel uncomfortable, not too uncomfortable for your liking, but try and move around, learn. Thank you, Simone. Thank you. Thank you very much, my sister. And can't wait to see you. I'll be in your area soon.
Thank you. And yeah, so we're going to be moving now on to some of our amazing speakers talking about solutions for sustainability in our communities. We're speaking about food sovereignty. We're speaking about green safe zones. So we're going to start with the master herself, Vanessa Black. Do you want to introduce yourself and share what you have to share with everyone here?
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. Some people I know, and some people it's for the first time. It's really great to be here. So yeah, I'm feeling a bit nervous about being called a master. But anyway, see what I can do. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to talk a little bit about agroecology and food sovereignty, which has come up in some of the chats on the group. I hope you can see the screen. Coming up. Okay, great. So I'm going to speed through some of these slides because we don't have time, but just wanted to start with the disconnection.
Yeah, no rush, Vanessa. This is really important information.
Right.
So please just share what you need to share.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, let me just go on to slide. Sorry, everything's covered up here. Okay. All right. So what I want to do start with is just looking at some of the politics and why we are in the situation that we are in not only in terms of the colonization people have experienced, but the ongoing colonization, especially in our food system. And so we're sitting with a global food system that is very much an industrialized food system. It's one that's corporate controlled. There's a handful of corporations that own seed, own inputs, and determine what is grown, how it moves, and what we eat, and also have all the processing and distribution. So in that process, they've through that wiped out a lot of our traditional practices, not just in Africa or in Latin America, but in Europe as well. I think Europe also has suffered from it. And so we, as those monocultures and those chemical inputs and the industrial system comes in, it wipes out our knowledge, our seed, our breeds. There's very few food and crops and animal breeds left in the world from all the diversity that people used to have. Wild spaces are being wiped out to make way for these monocultures. And in those wild spaces, it's also food. There's also food, there's medicine, there's materials, there's craft materials, there's cultural and spiritual sites. And with this removal, it's also a removal of culture and indigenous knowledge. So that we're suffering from massive industrialization on many levels. It's not the only kind. I mean, we're also suffering from mining expansion and land grabs for a variety of reasons. But a lot of the land grabbing is related to industrial agriculture of one kind or another. And in the system, people who eat food have also been completely alienated from the people who produce food. So what we have then is this current food system that's the intersection of a whole lot of crises that we face. I think a lot of people acutely experience food insecurity, especially in Southern Africa, and poor health and nutrition. So even where people are food secure, we've got a whole diversity of illnesses related to what we're eating. But there's also a whole lot of other issues. There's corporate concentration, contested land, and the resources that go with it. Climate change. So this industrial food system that we are in is contributing 34% of climate effect had been ignored for a very long time. It's really being taken up now in the climate space. But yeah, it's driving that whole impact, and related to that biodiversity loss. So biodiversity is being lost, and with it culture and knowledge, both to climate change, but also to due to the industrial agricultural spread of wiping out land. And then hazardous chemicals and super pests, and the impacts of hazardous chemicals on workers in the food system, on in terms of our health, in terms of eating food, but all the way through. I think people in Western Cape acutely know what it's like living in communities where your mum might be working in an industrial system, but your community is also being sprayed by aerial spraying, etc., and all the impacts that brings. So what can we do? And one of the sort of birth of this concept of food sovereignty has come about in resistance to that corporate system and the hunger that it causes, and the disconnection and the decimation of indigenous systems. So, and this has been a struggle over a long period. So in 1996, there was the World Food Summit that really looked at food insecurity, and there was a parallel summit where people from around the world and indigenous communities and social movements came together. And they said, this formal system is not going to sort this problem for us. And they conceptualized this concept of food sovereignty and formed this thing called the International Planning Committee for Food Sovereignty. And then there's been a series of mobilizations from that time. So one of the big ones was a conference in Mali that outlined what food sovereignty is, and I'm going to share some resources once I've finished with everyone that you can go and read up more about it. And then from that, people said, what food sovereignty is, the pillars of food sovereignty, but then identified agroecology as the way to achieve that. Also from those social mobilizations, particularly an organization called La Via Campesina, which draws together movements from around the world. They also have lobbied for, contributed to things like the UN TRIP, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, and then a follow-on one in 2018 called the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Peasants and People Working in Rural Areas, which reaffirms the rights of Indigenous people, but also identifies people working the land. And I just want to say, as South Africans in particular, because of our British colonialism, get very upset when they hear the word peasant. Peasant is not a swear word. It's a term that's used in Latin America and French Africa to talk about people who are living on the land and working the land and connected to the land. So that's why the term peasants come in. And then, there was another big mobilization and meeting again that came up with a declaration on agroecology, which I'll also share. And just to say, this year there's going to be a follow-up international meeting on food sovereignty with everyone coming together in India. So all the people in India, hopefully there's going to be a lot of connecting into that. So that's sort of where it's come from. Just to say what it is, what food sovereignty is about, and the declaration has a lot of explanation, but in a nutshell, It's the right of people to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and their right to define their own food and agriculture systems. And for indigenous people, agriculture, food systems are not necessarily agricultural systems. And I think that's something that we need to really bear in mind, because for San, for example, it's, you're going into a biodiverse nature, and you are knowing what to harvest, what to hunt, what medicine to use, etc. So it's not an agricultural system, but there is a food system, which people are completely tuned into. So the 6 pillars of food sovereignty are working with nature, focusing on food for people, putting control locally, valuing who are often the most marginalized people on the planet, building knowledge and skills, and localizing food systems. And you'll see localization comes up a lot. And if agroecology is the means to get there, what is that? And agroecology has got a longer history than food sovereignty, but it's really about applying ecology, which was a science that started developing in the 20s and 30s, like where we started understanding that we are part of nature, and nature has rules, and nature has processes, and a different way of working that we really need to study, and applying that to our food systems, our food production systems. So it's called a practice and a science because it's based on what people know and traditional culture, but it's also embracing new understanding that helps us get to know what's happening better. And then it's also grown into international movements, connecting producers and consumers and taking on a political agenda. And that is to really change the food system to be ecologically sound, economically fair, and socially just. So that's what it is in a nutshell. There's in the declaration, Nyeleni Declaration on Agroecology, it's a very beautiful document that also explains exactly what we're fighting for and against. But I love this quote from it because I think often when we looking at solutions or looking at doing things, we often come with our ideas and we go into a community and we impose them. And we impose our human thoughts onto nature, and that's not what agroecology is trying to do. So what this collective of people said is that it's a way of life, and it's about understanding the language of nature as her children. And therefore, it's not a set of practices. You can't have, do something in KZN, South Africa, and then impose it in Namibia. It's not going to work because it's not from the same place. It's not from the same culture. It's not from the same climate. It's not from the same soil. All of those things are different. So we need to understand what we do in terms of principles, rather understanding the principles behind how nature works, and then adapting that to our local culture and reality. So I think that's really key to remember in whatever we do. And there's many principles that have been developed for agroecology as well. Agroecology is now acknowledged at the level of the FAO, the Food and Agricultural Organization, after a long fight and mobilizing from social movements. And these 13 principles that have been accepted as agroecological principles that apply both to what we're doing on a piece of land or in our whole community, if we're looking at our community agro-ecosystem, or the food system globally. And I think some of these principles, they're organizing principles of life. And so they can be applied also to the way we organize a meeting or how we organize processes in our community. So I'm not going to go into details on this because not so much time. I'll put the link to this video in the chat. It's a video made by the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa that looks at agroecology from an African perspective. And I wanted to mention a little bit, just before we move on, about all these other terms that you might have heard. permaculture, biodynamic, organic, etc. And just to say, there are forms like permaculture that are very close to agroecology. They're all part of the sustainable system, and we can learn from all of them. Some don't go far enough. Some come from a different perspective. So permaculture is a design system that's come from the West, but it overlaps a lot. And so it's really just having a mindset of what are we trying to do? Where do we build from the community and from what we know, and then build on that. And so I'll leave with this slide just speaking about what ecological and sustainable food systems need to encompass. And being fair and accessible, reducing waste and being local and healthy. Thanks.
Thank you, Vanessa. And, speaking from my experience traveling around, I don't think there's a single community here in Southern Africa that's not facing some form of food crisis. So thank you for sharing. And everyone, Vanessa's going to share her details. So if you want advice for your community projects, for your land, please do reach out to her. She's an invaluable resource to have shared her time with us. We're very grateful.
So,
does anyone have a question?
Yeah, Vanessa, could you please explain some of the farming techniques that could be useful? I mean, I've learned a lot from you. It's been almost 25 years. And some of the work we've done, from worms in the soil to our own dogs being playing part in helping the soil, the plants we get to attract insects to the yard for certain reactions. Could you explain some of the techniques traditionally used in
So one of the things that we do in permaculture is also try and agroecology is try and find balance. Same as what Q was talking about, finding balance. And so we're not trying to kill pests. We need to get rid of the poisons, poisons on our food, but also poisons in our home. We're always trying to kill things. And in killing things, we also kill all the beneficial things. So get rid of that, stop trying to kill the pests and rather try and find a balance. So what we try and do is create as much diversity in the system as possible. So the diversity then draws beneficial predators, and they keep the problem insects in balance. So you're trying to build connection between all the different components of your system. Also, then a key focus is soil. So often we think, oh, there's nothing we can do. I know a lot of people on this call are from urban environments, and you think there's nothing you can do. But there is. You could start with a pot, like a pot plant pot, put your organics in it, go and find some worms, go dig around in a more natural area, or find someone who's got worms, let the worms compost what's in your pot with your kitchen waste, and then take them out and start a new pot. And you can start developing soil in your pots in that way. You don't have to go and buy it. You can do it like that. So we've got a worm bin. Someone gifted me a fancy one, but you don't need to. I made one before just out of one of those dustbin, plastic dustbins. You drill holes in the sides for air because the worms need air. You put some bricks or stones in the bottom because they don't want to drown in the juice that comes out. Elevate them, put some fabric down so they can't get into the stony area, and then you start layering the worms, some paper and your organic waste, and they'll work their way up as you keep adding food for them onto the top. And then you take it all out, so you sort them out, sort their eggs out. It takes a while to explain how, but it's not difficult. And then you've got your fertility to start enriching, even if you've got very sandy soil. Here we've got very sandy soil. We're in a tiny garden. We use whatever resources we have. So that's one of the principles as well. Stop buying plastic stuff, try and keep to organics. And then when you've got organic material, return it to the earth. And there's many ways to do that, so that you can make compost heaps. I'll share something now on making a compost heap, how to do that. But I know for some for some places it's difficult because you've got livestock that forage and sort of dig up everything, or chickens or rats, in our case, in the urban environment. So you don't have to be fancy. You can just, if you're starting out, dig a hole in your garden, put your kitchen waste into it and cover it up with soil. In 2 or 3 weeks, you'll see it's gone and there's lovely worms and, most importantly, microorganisms. And I think that's something that's really one of those sciences that are developing, understanding that microorganisms are essential for life. They're essential for helping plants get nutrients, and they're essential in and on our bodies. And if we don't have microorganisms in our guts, healthy organisms, we get sick, we can't process, we can't even think. So there's connections between our healthy gut microbiome and our mental health. So yeah, I mean, it's just a vast topic. And so yeah, start with the soil if you're starting out. Look at diversity and look at how you get resources back to the earth. Whether it's and also you think about other resources as well, your energy and water, for example, so you don't have erosion. And then I think another really important principle, agroecological principle, is around connection and cooperation. We need to learn to connect and cooperate. And if we don't do that, it's a fundamental principle in nature. I think we've been brainwashed by this Darwinian idea that nature, it's not. The majority of interactions in nature are about cooperation and connection. And so start looking at nature and start seeing those connections and how you can garden and how you can link up in your community to get that diversity thriving.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Roland, let's just wait for Brunmo. His hand was up first. Brunmo, and then after that, Roland.
Afternoon, everybody, and thanks for the invite. I know the session is going to be powerful. It is powerful, as I can see already. Vanessa, I just wanted to ask you a quick question. The document you shared with us, would you be able to share that with us after the session as well, please?
Sure.
Would really appreciate it. Okay, my community is El Dorado Park, Johannesburg South. And I see, and I've heard that Walid is basically from El Dorado Park. Q knows El Dorado Park as well. So we're all homeboys. Walid has mentioned is the violence. Okay, we grew up with violence, as Q can attest to that. Gang-related violence, it was all sorts of violence during our time. Walid, I know it's gotten worse. I'm in the community I have to speak at this moment. I have worked with an NPO and a cooperative within El Dorado Park that has, our main objective was to create environmental awareness and educate our community about the environment, about agriculture, about waste management, about everything that has to do with sustainability within the communities. El Dorado Park, as visually, it's a place which is filthy. There's lots of illegal dump sites within the community. I know that my NPO and cooperative days are behind me, as I told Q, since 2023. But I am on a journey at this moment, trying to recoup, trying to rethink, and try to come up with new ways to capture our youth so they can be part of this journey. I'm going to need, let me say, everybody's help and assistance to get this done. And I hope you guys will be available to assist in any way possible. So I will let you guys know. We'll keep chatting and we'll talk on WhatsApp and discuss whatever needs to be discussed. But the journey is going to be a long one, but it's one that will be, how can I say, Q, help me out, momentous, something that will be extraordinary, something that will be different.
First of all, let's be honest about the trauma you faced having a project in a known gang and violent area, a high-risk area. We work in high-risk areas. And this brother of mine went through a lot. I mean, it's not easy waking up the next morning and all your harvest is gone. And it's not gone, stolen, and given to feed somebody, Robin Hood in the hood. These things are dumped around the corner because you realize there's no value in what you have in your hand in the heat of the day. And, we don't mind the loss when people steal. We mind when the community keeps quiet. We mind when we rather hear church groups in our social groups are worried about the kid almost being shot. But the green safe zone that is being built for the kid is not being looked after, and the minds and hearts that's putting their lives at risk. I stopped doing skate parks, for example. I'm a person that can pull strings for a skate park in any poor community. I went as far as to build a skate park in Angola and as northern Angola. So understand, I'm part of some great people, but that was safer going to Angola than going into Riverlea, Aldous, or Mitchell's Plain. That was safer. And this is the psychological thing we as activists go through. In certain other parts of the world, activists are being murdered. In Palestine, they're being shot. In the forest, they're being shot. Brazil, everywhere we know. The Maasai, their activists are being pulled out of the country. So it is also understanding what is the trauma of an activist, what is the trauma of a humanitarian. As a photographer, I put my camera down because I was traumatized in the last xenophobia, where on my birthday I took photos of people burning. It scared photography out of me. I do not want to point a lens at a South African anymore. I don't feel proud. Now I'm trying to get back that camera in my hand. I'm a damn good photographer. I can speak a million stories out of one shot. But the trauma in me, knowing I have the tendency to do combat photography, violent photography, when is that going to stop? It's only going to be stopping if activists and people who enter our communities, white, black, or brown, realizes the help that comes to us needs to be protected. Nobody is coming. They come out of their own time, their own safety, their own families' homes. Appreciate their help, support them. That is what broke a man like Brunmo in Colorado Park. And it is not easy working in our communities. Trust me. So he's lost in Colorado Park, and hearing now that the man is figuring out the path to come back, it is important for him to know that he has got support. And Brunmo, he will always have IYX Africa support, and me as your brother separately.
Roland, you had a question?
Thank you, guys.
Before we go on, yeah. Roland, do you have a question? Maybe a signal.
Yeah.
Are you there, brother man?
Can you hear?
Roland? Yeah, I can hear now.
No. Okay. I just want to know from Vanessa. Vanessa, you're saying about the agriculture eco, something like that, no? I farm with indigenous flowers, no? Like I cultivate proteas. So we spray pesticides for the pest that eats the heads of the flowers. But I have looked at planting crops that can make the pesticides less, and so. But because indigenous flowers don't want manure in the soil, it doesn't grow with manure. It's one natural ground to grow in. I can't put manure around the fields where I plant because if I contaminate it now with manure, I can't plant there for a long, long time because it must be virgin land that I plant on. Is there any other thing that I can use that I can make maybe the insects less? Because I also do honey bees, and when I must spray, the bees can get harmed.
Yeah. I don't know, particularly in your environment, because it sounds quite challenging, but there must be some other indigenous plants that are natural predators for the insects that are attacking the proteas. Because normally when there's a pest problem, it's because whatever the predator is isn't eating them. In addition to possibly the microbial life. So I'd need to ask some people in your side of the world if they're aware of what could increase that diversity for you that you could plant in between. Because normally if there's like vegetable systems, for example, or there's been quite a lot of studies with wine farming where they wanted to get off the pests, and what they ended up doing is planting just like long rows with hedgerows or like borders of very diverse flowering plants, because the flowers attract the predator wasps. They need the flower and the nectar in their life cycle, and then that helps. Then they go and they attack the pest insects. So it might be something like that that you're missing in your system when you're monocropping with proteas. I'm suspecting.
Yes, proteas
So
grow
yeah.
well with lavender. Lavender is the only plant that keeps proteas pest at bay. But also, brother, look at, for example, what I do with radionics. I could broadcast that pest's, how can I say, signature to the area from where I am right now, and that could shift the pest. Unfortunately, won't kill it, but shift it outside your area. And things like that is possible. I'll show you diagrams of how it's done. It's like you taking four copper rods, putting it around your property, and I broadcast energy that is the enemy of the insect. So I would need you to catch me few of the insects so that I can identify them and see what insect it is. And then I send the energy frequency of the enemy of that insect onto your land without disturbing the bees. That is also possible.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So just because of time.
Is there any more questions?
Oh, good. Okay, so we would like to just move on to the indigenous affairs, and Cyril, we will come back to you, but just to watch with time.
We also would like to remind people that's on the screens. Please look in the chat. There's very valuable charts and images being sent into the chat that you would. Next, we will have Cyril Janki, sensing that we're still on the food link of the topics. We're staying with food security until next topic. My brother Cyril, Vashi Butaya, I and I. Nice to see you, Farid. Dase Buta. Rastafari.
Give thanks. Can you hear me clearly?
Give thanks, my Lord.
You guys can hear me clearly, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
You guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. God bless everyone. First Nation people, supporters of First Nation people. I welcome you all. Thanks IYX for having me on the platform again. It is truly an honor to be among amazing people like you guys. Yeah, so where do I start? Yeah, so thanks for everything IYX and for organizing this conference. Thank you for actively being involved in our communities and trying to create the conditions that allows us to come up with solutions that actually bring us closer to our destiny. So I'm very glad to be part of this movement. And then, yeah, so where do I start? The brother earlier did mention about how he struggles with indigenous people and teaching them and having to struggle with their psychological blockages, you know. And like you also mentioned, this is what he faced when he goes into the Kalahari with the Bushman. And he has to face with this psychological traumas and stuff that these people can not release, you know, in order for them to move forward and to advance with culture. So there's a need for a bridge. There's a need for a bridge between our traditional and our cultural way of how we are being taught and how we are being educated and trained, you see. And that bridge can only be made by people that comes from an indigenous background, that actually understands the indigenous struggle and our traumas that we are facing in our communities, in our areas, and then try to incorporate what is new, bring in what is new in such a way that it doesn't, you know, shock us, you know, give us trauma shock, like you put it. So, with that being said, uh, there's two different ways that a person can that we can be educated, you know, and like the way me and Q, I met with Q on a bus, or I met with IYX Africa when they invited me on a journey to go and study agroecology in the KZN. Now that uh, journey really put me on a course of you know, coming back to my community and developing, you know, bringing that skill back into my community. So thanks to IYX Africa for taking me on that journey and taking me on that trip and on that training, because on that training I was able to physically interact with what is being done on a farm, what is being done in the garden, and those experiences that I've experienced there, I can never forget it. I can just never forget it. So it is not the same as sitting in a classroom and writing with a pen or reading this information from a book and trying to remember it and then never actually going out and practicing it, you see. So the way of learning between between these two systems is quite different, is very much different, you see. And when a kid, for example, is being taken out in the bush to go and learn about animals, how to track animals, how to use a bow and an arrow, how to identify herbal and edible plants and stuff like that, that kid is being educated, right? And um, that is the kind of education that I think needs to be incorporated or integrated with what we have in school today, so that we can be able to build that bridge between indigenous knowledge and indigenous cultures and what we currently have going on in the school system, the way our school system is, and as we know it today. So I'm very glad that I am able to be an educator in this time, and that I can try and promote, you see, the way that we have been taught and we are being taught in our traditional way back in before we had the school systems, and trying to promote how that can be incorporated into our school systems today. So in order for our children to remember their culture, remember where they come from and who they are as an indigenous people. So with this training that I had with Q with them, with Q7 and IYX, I was able to come back in my community. I was able to establish a community garden, and we are successfully running and maintaining this community garden right now. And this is all thanks to the knowledge and the training that I had with IYX on agroecology at BioWatch. And this is so valuable to us, you know. And this is what we talk about when we talk about youth empowerment, community empowerment, is that when we go out and we go get training and go get education outside our community, it is for us to come back and reinvest that in information and knowledge into our community, where we now build and advance the interests of our community and our culture. And I think this is also the primary purpose of education, and that parents, when they send their kids to school, they should make it clear to their children that when they send them to school, it is the purpose, it is because of the fact that they must go to school, get the knowledge, get the information, and come back and better their circumstances, better their community, better their culture, better their society. So if you're getting education or getting any kind of training out there, and you are not using it for the purpose of development of your culture and your cultural interest, then at the end of the day, your education becomes in vain. So I think that's what I have to say for now. And thanks once again to IYX for the amazing work that you do in the communities, because developing the youths, developing our communities, empowering them in such a way with education and with trainings and stuff like that, it is really necessary for us to bring the positive changes that we want to see in our communities. So thank you very much for this amazing work, and thank you again for all these amazing people that we are connected with. Uh, Much blessings for this new year, and I hope to can see that we have this conference more in a physical way, so that we can connect more with these beautiful and amazing people. Thank you, IYX.
Thank you, Sarul. Thank you, my brother. Sarul is one of the young men that we actually made a connection on a bus. And from there to where he stands now, I can honestly say I can trust him with seed. I'm a person that doesn't put seed in anybody's hands. I'm not right for that. Seed to me is as good as a spoon of water. It's very valuable. And the first lessons he took on his journey was planting seed. We in Namakwa land. And to keep a seed alive in the Makwa land, it's not just moist and rock, it's hungry insects. So you must understand the diversity you're part of and the sewing you need to get used to while understanding and studying food, especially at that level where you're in a semi-arid place, have to learn water retaining plants, have to learn what is OPV, open pollinated varieties, have to know what is drought tolerant seeds. These are things that is now becoming a reality in our lives. So if young men like him could take a moment in his life as even say teacher to learn the true meaning of looking after food, not eating food. We are taught too much about eating it. We are not taught about looking after food. And it's an attitude now we need to get into to look after food because that thinking of there's always going to be something to eat has finally met its match. You do know what to eat. We don't read our labeling on our packets. There's genetically modified food and it's labeled like that. And then you get sick and then you wonder why you sick. Read your labels on your packets, people. It's part of food. It is part of it. The more you understand that foods became a weapon, the more the powers that be has to change it. Policy in food
It's
cannot
like I
change
say
without.
always.
Yes, brother.
Sorry to interrupt you, but you see, when I'm around here in our communities and we're working with a lot of young people, you see, coming to our garden, and we teach them these things that we learn. And I always tell them when I have a lot of seeds, all these seeds that I have, they cannot imagine how rich I am feeling. You see, it can't be compared to how I feel when I have money. You see, when I have seeds in my hand, and that's how I feel about having seeds and protecting seeds and making sure that it actually works with us here. You see.
Thank you, Cyril. We have youth bush camps, and in this youth bush camps, we're teaching children how to understand each other's environment, each other's habitats. So you're not finding youth coming from one section of the country. Like Vanessa taught me how to companion plant, I started using the understanding of agroecology in the understanding of community development. So I do companioning of children like I would do companion planting. I would have a child from a drought tolerated area, a child from a forestry area, a child from many different areas. And some of these children can't make it there physically, so they're there virtually. And they learn each other's habitats because very slowly each one's habitat is becoming weaker by the other one's development. And this is something that agroecology has taught me in youth development. The parts of our community we see as weeds that we are pulling out is actually the medicine for the community. These weeds must stop being sent to jail, stop being sent to rehabilitations. Like I said, I got friends in here. Simone can tap into your mind with yoga as quick as anybody. She's just not beautiful. Doc is a doctor, a homeopath. These are things in our community as brown people we need to look at. There is no form of advice from a white person or a black person without being racist or anything that could be found as a way of believing them after triple colonization. So start listening to your brown people who studied this, who's already in those fields. If you want to be a person that looks at colonization that deep, start supporting these people in brown and people of color that has these knowledge if you feel you need to learn them. Because we didn't learn it for nothing. We learned it to be of some service to the brown community. There's people like my brother Sean in here. He's into economics. He knows economics hurts us, but you know what? He has to be there. We're urbanizing. He has to learn the new ways of speaking that currency because we are heading there. We have intellectual property to be aware of. These are things that is important, people. How we share our networks and make it available for our community and how we communicate it to people of color is very important. For example, this conference has got a listing, meaning a program to control how I say it and when I say it. Do you all think it was followed as people of color? No, because we have that is culturally inappropriate to us to talk. We talk in a village. So it's also us that needs to teach the people on how to stop making us behave. That is very important. Indigenous people has a way. In that way, we communicate differently. We soak in information differently. It takes time with us. People should stop pushing us when they're trying to help us. And they will not do that until you say some people of color, until you say something. But we need to speak and behave. That's our other part of who we are in our community. Some of us brown people of color trying to help out there is also scared of the loudness and the aggression that we see amongst us. So again, thank you for that. And we now move on to almost closing our session. So we're looking at doc after doc. I'd like to hear on my brother Sean McDonald, which is somebody really needing to be heard on his platforms within the United Nations as well. We're all getting a shot to enter that framework from many angles. And the native people of all around the world and other people, non-indigenous people, needs a new, not leadership, but new form of advice. The old ways was not working. So again, thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
next we have Dirk and Doc, Francois Rubenheimer, and we will close with my brother, Sean McDonald.
Yeah, and then we will answer everyone's questions once everyone has had a chance to speak.
It's only those three people, and then we can have the floor open.
Okay. So, Doc?
Doc is into medicine. Ricardo's got a question as well.
Okay.
Doc is a homeopath and a person has been working with me in places like Platfontein, Namibia. Whenever I'm on the road doing treatments on the road and I'm talking advanced treatments, I can't do this without Doc being on either a call, video call, or by my side. He's been one of my friends in medicine for almost 20 years. He knows my own personal pain as well. So welcome, Doc. And yes, his contribution.
How's everyone? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, no, I mean, yeah, Q and I go a long way. I mean, back to when IYX was still Project Mantis, like quite a number of years ago. But yeah, I mean, we've done quite a few expeditions and work out in Platfontein. Again, this is also a community that was, there's a lot of geopolitics and again, not gangsterism, but there was other problems, drugs and modernization and the youth trying to move away from their culture, trying to go into the cities to find work and we encountered quite a lot of other problems there. And also again, like it's again, different environment, this is like bordering onto the Kalahari. So very dry, very arid, very difficult to grow anything. And it was also a lot of farmers with goats. So, and we multiple times tried to start gardens and help people to start gardens. And then, in one day, someone's goat gets in and destroys the whole crop. And we also did community clinics out that side. And I mean, this is also, again, where homeopathy and Ayurveda and traditional medicine became such a good, example of how natural medicine could work in these communities. Because, many communities have been experimented upon with pharmaceuticals, that have led to severe adverse events and adverse reactions, and keeping people away from going to Western medicine. And also the lack of what's the word I'm looking for, accessibility to clinics and to basic healthcare. Platfontein, I think, Q, you can correct me here, I think the closest clinic to Platfontein was 50 kilometers away.
The closest proper clinic was 50 kilometers away. The nearest clinic was 100 meters away with no service and translation.
Yeah, so again, like the doctors, they couldn't communicate effectively to the indigenous groups there. I mean, this was the Kun and the Kwe. And it was very difficult for them to get any information from the patients. And we ended up seeing patients there, and they were sitting with TB medication. There was nothing wrong with their lungs. You could not hear anything wrong in their lung fields. And then when you talk to them, it's, we started to, uncover all the elements that were plaguing them. And, when Q started to collect the data from, and the anecdotal responses from the community, we had some fantastic results, and how well people responded on the natural medicine and the natural treatments. And now we have technology like radionics that can broadcast these things frequentially over long distances as well. So we don't even need to be physically there with them, which is fantastic. And you can also, when there is a general, like what we call a genus epidemicus, when there's an outbreak in a local community, you can broadcast that, the remedy, which is that the genus epidemicus is the remedy that treats that particular outbreak or that particular condition. So you can literally broadcast that remotely to those communities, and you can effectively treat the whole community for that. If you're not able to,
we can broadcast it to bottles of water, and they can drink water, and they could block or increase immune protection against that certain virus. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, the times I couldn't go with Q, I've been on standby and also sent medicine with him on expeditions when I'm not able to go with. And it was, it's been great being involved remotely. But we are working on starting a kind of remote assist clinic to start reaching out to these communities that require aid. I've come a long way with Q, and also I'm excited for what the future may bring with IYX Africa, and the future expeditions that we're planning to go on. I don't know, is there anything else that you guys wanted to find out from me, or have any questions?
Yeah, well, Doc is in the group as well, in the IndigiCures group that's sharing the link. He's there and well, and I mean, here's your, if you don't trust a healer, here's a healer doctor that could even give you the same advice that I would if you don't trust to come, because Doc knows I work straight within the natural field, but he's got the paperwork to actually qualify to look at your body and give diagnosis, which if you don't believe me, you go over to him. Like I said, it's these levels that I work in and that he works in. But most importantly, that we want to train people. We want to train midwives. On this remote clinic we have, we need midwives. I'm a midwife. I would like to train any woman on how to bring a child into this world properly, how to wrap you up, what are the medicines I need to give you, what is the hot rag wrappings of back in the day when people my age were born. Our old ladies used to wrap our mothers up and do a particular type of bed sheets on you or cloth. I would like to teach you these things and teach you how to open up your breast when you need to breastfeed a child that can't be breastfed. These are very important things today in society. So me and Doc is looking at training midwives and train a small group of people that also has to go back to their communities and train people to work within the community.
The water is pumped in. Go
Ronald,
down.
Ronald, you're off from mute.
Thanks so much,
Thanks.
Doc, for
Yeah,
bringing
so
that in.
thank you.
Yeah, we haven't, and like you can see, we've had an amazing group of healers on. So this is really powerful to have access to
Yeah,
these
and
amazing.
access any of them, you go to that group. We're all in one group. Puja is there, Doc is there, I am there.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to be moving on to speaking about Indigenous development, and we have some amazing Indigenous leaders and youth leaders here. So who do you want to start with?
Let's start with Dirk. Dirk is in Namibia, brother of mine there in Namibia, and Dirk is working with the San community, very instrumental there with what we're trying to achieve with especially the San annual festival as well as his community. Dirk, are you there? Matisa, Dirk. Okay, right. So it doesn't seem Dirk is there on time. We can go on to Sean. Sean, are you there, my brother? McDonald. I think it's network problems.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's network problems.
Farid?
Farid, are you there? Farid?
It's coming on.
Dirk is coming on. Dirk is coming on. Can you hear me? Good day, brother. I understand your network is going to be a bit weak. Just speak up a bit.
Yeah, but you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. But I will just try to be to do as short as possible. But now, well, my take is this, I'm talking about the annual Sun conference in Namibia. Okay. Basically, this entity was started in 2013 to bring the Sun people together. And I just put there in the text now just the vision, the mission of the annual Sun conference. But then basically its purpose is to see a future where the Sun culture thrives and it's celebrated globally. And it also empowers the Sun communities to achieve self-determination and prosperity. Of course, a lot of things were already taken most here, how the Sun can actually be able to live from their own culture and so forth. And as you can see from even how we want to achieve these goals, the cultural preservation, the community empowerment, advocacy and awareness, and integration of knowledge transfer and community development. I think this is actually issues that speak deep to a lot of things that was already discussed here. Now, well, currently we are in our initial stages of preparing for this year. The event will be on the 4th to the 10th of September. We are still voting for the town which is going to be a host for the event, and a lot of is going on behind to try to get things in order. Now, one thing though that we have seen in the past is that issues that have to deal with some people, sometimes they are not handled all right. And I think that we are at a stage where we need to learn and relearn again how to best actually preserve the culture of the San people, even the culture of other indigenous people in Nigeria, like the Ovahimba, Ovatwe, and so forth, even in Damaras. But then now, what we have seen is that there is a lot of challenges, but there is always a need. We go always way back that people want to say, no, we must find ways to preserve the culture of the San people. We must find ways to develop them. We must find ways to bring out their knowledge and share it with the world and all these things. Now, in OPEC, when we are going to meet, we are hoping that we are going to develop more around these things, how we are going to develop the San people developing themselves. And of course, other people also helping, because we have come to realize that most of the time, San people were not really advanced in terms of education and so forth. And there's always a need for other people to help intervene in one way or the other to assist. Now, besides that, we actually look at establishing other agencies around this that can actually fast track the development of San, uh, San knowledge, San culture, San music. Yeah. And one of the ways that we saw that we can actually be able to break through is to adapt a technology-driven culture preservation where we will actually go there in a community, in a Bapatwa natural reserve, in Tunkwe, in Tinsape, go and hear the stories and record them and be able to hear the songs really like from their roots and also develop interactive platforms so that we can be able to always connect with those people who are out there and then of course one of the issues that always comes up is that in terms of songs, the San people they need to find a way to coin their own style. Most of the time, when San people are singing, there will be no difference between Damara Punch and what they're singing. It's more like they have adapted other people's culture. But then I'm sure that once we go out there to the rural areas where they are mostly there and we hear their music and we connect them to, well, there's a lot of tools today. Even also the air-powered language stuff. We can use these tools to be able to what to preserve the soul of the San people's music and for them to actually generate their own style of music. And of course, we around these things, there's a lot of other things that comes up, like how do we get to have the San people to benefit from what? To benefit from their culture. And I think a lot of people have actually raised it up now and then. I have been discussing a lot with Q7 about intellectual property, right? And of course, I have been doing research in Namibia. How possible can we actually be able to register the rights of this stuff, the treasures that we are going to be picking up as we are going out to collect among the San people? How are we going to protect the copyright and trademark? How are we going to ensure that they are properly compensated when we actually roll them out into a market their stuff? And actually also, how can we turn these ecotourism and cultural experiences, how can we actually create forms of community-based tourism and also other platforms that actually will bring out the culture and even also be able to put them out there in the international market to sell their stuff, to sell their handwork, to sell their other cultural products. The other one is, of course, sustainability and the ability that when we are doing this, we are not causing harm. We are able to help people some people to share their knowledge and experience with the world, but then there is also a way that they don't lose everything in exercising that. They don't lose anything at all, but that is actually be through their empowerment. And of course, in the areas where some people are, there is always the thing of the climate change, and they need to adapt. They need to adapt. Everybody is encroaching on their areas. People are grabbing land because they want more space for their cattle. How can we actually help the San people so that we can actually do something better? I think that is all. Then let's hear if there is any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, brothers. So, in a nutshell, what the brother's trying to explain is that, for example, I sit with the Sun Council on technical committees, and our biggest problem is asking the world to recognize our intellectual property. And we're asking the world to do this because it's our last form of earning. And we need to graduate out of marginalization into a space where we can afford to mix with other clans or with other groupings, because right now, if you're looking at education and the world rated to 1 to 10, I would say the Bushman is sitting on 0.1. We were never informed of a lot of things out there. And today you see the clashes. You might think that we in urban areas our coping mechanisms is failing because of what we're facing. If you look at the bush, their coping mechanisms because of our stress. We go out there into Namibia to go on holiday. We go into Namibia to go and breathe, to go into open spaces. But you're taking all your stressful energy to people, other people. And these people, due to tourism, get affected. And a tourism hasn't got a way to even see what it does because it thinks it does a good job. In the end, us indigenous people do rely on tourism. A thing like an elephant, for example, if it's shot in that area, all elephants go away and we don't get tourists. But it's also to look at what